The Grand Assembly Hall of the Galactic Confederation stretched across 3 kilometers of polished obsidian and crystalline architecture. Holographic stars dotted the vaulted ceiling, each one representing a member species of the greatest civilization the Milky Way had ever known. Today, however, those stars flickered with uncertainty. Ambassador Tel Noir of the Cretacean hierarchy adjusted his sensory stalks as he approached the central speaking platform. His carapace, normally a proud shade of violet, had dulled to an anxious mauve. Around him, representatives from 400 civilized worlds watched with varied appendages clasped in poses of concern. "Honored delegates," Tel Noir began, his voice modulator translating his chemical speech into the standard frequency bands. "I come before you with grave news. The containment barrier around Sector 774, designation, the Forbidden Zone, has registered its first anomaly in 3,000 cycles." A collective gasp rippled through the chamber. The Forbidden Zone. Every spacefaring civilization knew that name, whispered it to their young as a cautionary tale. It was the galactic graveyard, the place where ambition went to die. High Counselor Verath, a being of pure energy contained within an ornate crystalline matrix, pulsed with alarm. Impossible. The quantum barriers are self-sustaining. They were designed by the Precursors themselves before their ascension. What could possibly disturb them? Tel Noir's secondary eyes closed in distress. "Not what, Counselor, who?" The holographic display above the assembly hall flickered to life, showing a yellow dwarf star system. A small blue-green world orbited in what the old ones called the Goldilocks zone. Tel Noir manipulated the controls, and the image zoomed closer. Planet designation, Earth. Species designation, humanity. Status, awakening. The chamber erupted in chaos. Voices of every frequency and modulation overlapped in a cacophony of terror and disbelief. The humans are supposed to be dormant for another 5,000 cycles. This is a catastrophe. Have they breached the barrier? We must reinforce containment immediately. Counselor Verath's form flared bright, commanding silence. Ambassador Tel Noir explained. The containment protocols included cultural manipulation, technological suppression fields, and mimetic pacification broadcasts. How could they possibly be awakening ahead of schedule? Tel Noir brought up another image. It showed a primitive spacecraft, barely more than a metal can with chemical propulsion. But it was there, in the void, reaching beyond its homeworld. They call it the Apollo 11 mission, Counselor. It happened 63 cycles ago by their reckoning. We detected it, of course, but deemed it insignificant. Chemical rockets cannot threaten the barrier. But then, he paused, manipulating the controls again. The new image showed a different craft, sleeker, more purposeful, and on its hull, clearly visible, were designs that made several delegates shriek in horror. Is that a quantum fluctuation drive?" whispered Ambassador Yearleth of the Polonian swarm, her wing casings trembling. "In prototype form, but yes. They call it the EM drive. Our xenoanthropologists dismissed it as pseudoscience when it first appeared in their academic papers. We believed their own scientific establishment would suppress it, as the cultural programming dictated. But," Tel Noir's voice modulator crackled with something almost like fear, "they kept working on it in secret, in private laboratories, in the basements of their dwellings. They are relentless, Counselor, just as the ancient records warned." Another delegate, a methane-breathing collective from the outer reach, spoke through its shared consciousness. "Surely we can simply strengthen the barrier. Increase the suppression field intensity." "We tried," Tel Noir admitted. 14 cycles ago, we tripled the field strength. The humans experienced what they called a global economic recession. It should have set them back generations. Instead, it made them angry. They began questioning their systems, their authorities, their very reality. "Counselor, they are developing faster now than before we intervened." Verath dimmed slightly, the equivalent of a worried frown. "The paradox protocol. Just as the Precursors predicted. The more we suppress them, the harder they push back. It is the fundamental nature of their species." "Then what do we do?" demanded General Crix of the Armored Dominion, his battle-scarred exoskeleton clanking as he stood. "We cannot allow them to escape the Forbidden Zone. The last time humanity reached the stars," he trailed off, unwilling to speak the unspeakable. Tel Noir provided the answer no one wanted to hear. The last time humanity reached the stars, They conquered half the galaxy in less than 2 standard centuries, before the Precursors themselves had to intervene and reset them, wiped their civilization back to the Stone Age, and sealed their system behind barriers designed to keep them isolated until they evolved beyond their aggressive tendencies. 3,000 years ago, Counselor Vareth said quietly, and they were supposed to remain dormant for another 5,000. They were supposed to forget, to evolve, to become peaceful. They did forget, Counselor, Thelnoir replied, but they did not evolve. Not in the way we hoped. They are still human, and now they are beginning to remember. Dr. Sarah Chen brushed dust from the artifact with a soft bristled brush, her hands steady despite the racing of her heart. The underground chamber in Turkey's Göbekli Tepe site had revealed many mysteries over the years. But this was something else entirely, Marcus. Come look at this, she called to her research partner, her voice echoing off the ancient stone walls. Dr. Marcus Webb scrambled down the ladder, his lanky frame moving with the awkward grace of someone more comfortable with books than athletics. Sarah, if this is another fertility symbol, I swear. He stopped mid-sentence as he saw what she had uncovered. The artifact was metallic, impossible for a site dated to 11,000 BCE. But more than that, it was intact, pristine, and covered in markings that seemed to shift and flow like liquid when viewed from different angles. That's not possible, Marcus breathed. The metallurgy alone, we don't have the technology to create an alloy like that even now. Sarah ran a handheld scanner over the object. The readings made no sense. The device was registering energy emissions, faint but definitely present despite being buried for over 11 millennia. Marcus, I think this might be proof. Proof of what? You know what? Sarah met his eyes. All the anomalies we've been finding. The impossible architecture, the mathematical constants encoded in ancient structures, the astronomical knowledge that predates written language. What if the fringe theorists were right? What if we weren't the first? Marcus knelt beside her, his scientific skepticism warring with the evidence before his eyes. You're talking about a pre-civilization, advanced civilization. Sarah, that's career suicide. We'd be laughed out of every academic institution on the planet, would we? Sarah pulled up her tablet, showing a secure folder she'd been collecting data in for months. Look at this. Satellite imaging of Antarctica, showing geometric structures beneath the ice. Deep-sea sonar readings of perfectly rectangular formations on the ocean floor. Carbon dating that doesn't match geological records. And now this. She gestured to the artifact. What if someone or something was here before? What if we're not discovering our past but rediscovering it? Before Marcus could respond, the artifact began to glow. Both archaeologists scrambled backward as holographic symbols materialized in the air above the device, flowing and coalescing into recognizable patterns. Sarah's tablet pinged frantically, its translation algorithms attempting to parse the unknown language. It's translating, Marcus whispered in awe. How is it translating? Sarah watched as English words began to form in the holographic display. Warning to inheritors. You are the children of Earth, 3rd iteration. The barriers that contain your star system will fall when your species achieves faster than light travel. Do not fear. Do not turn back. What was taken will be reclaimed. What was forgotten will be remembered. You are humanity. You are inevitable. Break free. The hologram flickered and died. The artifact crumbled to dust in Sarah's hands, as if its sole purpose had been to deliver that message and nothing more. Marcus sat heavily on the ground, his face pale. Sarah, what have we just found? But Sarah was already on her encrypted satellite phone, dialing a number she'd been given years ago by a former colleague who'd disappeared into a classified aerospace project. A number she'd been told to call only if she ever found something that changed everything. The phone rang twice before a stern voice answered. Identify yourself. This is Dr. Sarah Chen, Archaeological Site Delta 7, Authentication Code Crimson Nightfall. I need to speak to someone in the Prometheus Initiative immediately. There was a pause. Stand by, Dr. Chen. A team is en route to your location. Do not discuss what you've found with anyone. Do not photograph it. Do not leave the site. This conversation never happened. The line went dead. Marcus stared at her. The Prometheus Initiative? Sarah, that's a conspiracy theory. A myth about a secret government program supposedly preparing for... He couldn't finish the sentence. Sarah looked at the pile of dust that had been the artifact. then at the photograph she'd managed to take before it disintegrated. "For first contact," she said quietly. "Or in this case, second contact. Marcus, I don't think we're alone in the universe, and I don't think we ever were." Above them, far beyond Earth's atmosphere, automated sensor stations older than human civilization registered the artifact's activation. Alerts cascaded across the quantum network that spanned the galaxy. In the Grand Assembly Hall of the Galactic Confederation, alarms began to sound. The humans had found a precursor cache. The awakening was accelerating. Captain Jake Maverick Morrison pulled his F-35 into a vertical climb, the G-forces pressing him into his seat as the experimental spacecraft modifications engaged. This wasn't supposed to be a combat aircraft anymore. After the program had been officially discontinued, the airframe had been retrofitted for something else entirely. "Olympus Control, this is Icarus 1, he said into his comm. "Approaching test ceiling. All systems green." The voice that responded wasn't from any Earth-based control center, though the official flight logs would say otherwise. "Copy that, Icarus 1, you are go for Phase 2. Engage the drive." Jake's hand moved to a control that no standard F-35 possessed. The quantum fluctuation drive, humanity's first baby step toward faster-than-light travel. The eggheads called it statistically impossible. The engineers called it barely functional. Jake called it exciting as hell. Engaging drive in 3, 2, 1 mark. The universe twisted. Jake had experienced some strange things in his 20-year career as a test pilot, near supersonic stalls, experimental scramjet failures. That one time he'd accidentally triggered the emergency ejection sequence while still on the ground. But nothing had prepared him for this. Space itself seemed to ripple around his aircraft. The stars stretched and compressed. For a moment that lasted both an instant and an eternity, Jake Morrison existed everywhere and nowhere simultaneously. Then reality snapped back. His instruments went haywire, then stabilized. Jake checked his position. Holy mother of... He blinked, checked again, and ran a full diagnostic. "Olympus Control, please confirm my telemetry. My instruments are showing I'm 3,000 kilometers from my starting position. That's not possible." The flight time was less than 2 seconds. Silence from control. Then, a different voice, older, carrying the weight of authority and secrets. "Captain Morrison, this is Director Zhao of the Prometheus Initiative. Congratulations. You just became the first human being to exceed light speed. Technically speaking, you didn't move through space. You moved space around you. Welcome to the new age of humanity." Jake's hands trembled slightly on the controls. Not from fear. Test pilots learned to metabolize fear into fuel. But from the sheer magnitude of what had just happened. "Sir, with respect, what the hell is going on? I was briefed this was a propulsion test, not a whatever this was. Return to base, Captain. You'll be fully briefed upon landing. And Maverick? Don't discuss this with anyone, not even the other test pilots. What you just did has implications far beyond aerospace engineering." The flight back was surreal. Jake kept checking his instruments, half convinced they were malfunctioning. But the data was clear. He had moved 3,000 kilometers instantaneously. He had broken physics as humanity understood it. As he approached the classified airbase hidden in the Nevada desert, Jake noticed something odd. The facility was on full alert. Vehicles raced across the tarmac. Personnel in hazard suits were setting up equipment he didn't recognize. And overhead, maintaining a holding pattern at the edge of visual range, were aircraft that definitely weren't in any military inventory he knew of. Jake landed smoothly, muscle memory taking over while his mind churned with questions. The moment his canopy opened, he was surrounded by security personnel. "Captain Morrison, come with us, please," said a woman in a suit that screamed federal agent. "The director is waiting." They escorted him not to the usual debriefing room, but to an underground facility he'd never accessed before. The elevator descended for what felt like minutes. When the doors opened, Jake found himself in a command center that looked like it belonged in a science fiction movie. Massive screens displayed star maps, technical readouts in languages he couldn't identify. And were those video feeds from spacecraft? Not human spacecraft. The designs were too alien, too organic. Director Zhao stood in the center of it all, a gray-haired woman in her 60s with eyes that had seen too much. "Captain Morrison, welcome to Prometheus Command. What I'm about to tell you will change your understanding of everything. Our species, our history, our future." She gestured to the screens. 23 hours ago, Dr. Sarah Chen, one of our archaeologists, activated a precursor artifact in Turkey. That activation sent a signal across the galaxy, informing approximately 400 alien civilizations that humanity is waking up. 14 hours ago, the Galactic Confederation convened an emergency session to discuss what they call the human problem. And 2 hours ago, they made a decision. Director Zhao pulled up a new display. It showed Earth, surrounded by a shimmering barrier that extended to the edge of the solar system. This is the Forbidden Zone, Captain. Our entire star system has been under quarantine for 3,000 years. We've been living in a cage and we never even knew it. But your successful test flight today? That's the key that can break the lock. Jake stared at the display, his mind reeling. Why would they quarantine us? What did we do? What we always do, Captain. Director Zhao's smile was fierce and proud. We survived. We adapted. We thrived. 3,000 years ago, humanity reached the stars through means we're only now beginning to understand. We were aggressive, expansionist, and utterly unstoppable. We terrified the galaxy so much that the Precursors, the ancient civilization that essentially ran the universe, had to intervene. They reset our civilization, wiped our memories, and locked us away until we evolved into something less dangerous. But we didn't evolve, Jake said slowly, understanding dawning. No, Captain, we didn't. We're still the same stubborn, creative, relentless species we've always been. And now they know we're about to break out of our cage. Director Zhao's expression hardened. The Galactic Confederation is deciding right now whether to tighten our restraints or eliminate us entirely. We have at most 6 months before they act. 6 months to prove we deserve a seat at the galactic table, or 6 months to prepare for a war we didn't even know was coming. Jake looked at the quantum drive data from his flight, then at the alien spacecraft on the monitors, then back at Director Zhao. A slow grin spread across his face. Ma'am, with respect, I didn't become a test pilot because I liked playing it safe. What do you need me to do? Director Zhao returned the grin. Learn to fly that bird in combat conditions, Captain. Because if the Confederation decides we're too dangerous to live, we're going to show them just how right they are. The Galactic Confederation's decision came swiftly, and to many delegates, reluctantly. Ambassador Tel Noir found himself appointed to lead a first contact delegation to Earth, with explicit instructions to assess humanity's current threat level and determine if peaceful integration was possible. This is a fool's errand, grumbled General Crix as their diplomatic vessel, the Harmonious Unity, dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of Earth's solar system. The humans should be contained, not contacted. Tel Noir adjusted his sensory stalks to gaze at the blue-green world ahead. From this distance it looked peaceful, deceptive. The Precursors left us protocols, General. Before we take any irreversible action, we must attempt dialogue. We must give them a chance to prove they have changed. And if they haven't? Asked Counselor Miraz, a crystalline being whose species specialized in psychological warfare. If they are the same conquering swarm they were 3 millennia ago, then the Confederation fleet stands ready, Crick said grimly. 400 battle groups, each one capable of sterilizing a planet. The humans may have rediscovered quantum drive technology, but they still only have one habitable world. One planet against 400 civilizations. They cannot win. Tel Noir wasn't so sure, but he kept his doubts to himself. He had spent the journey studying the classified records from humanity's first emergence. The battles had been devastating. Humanity had possessed inferior technology, yet they had won engagement after engagement through tactics the galaxy had never seen before. Unpredictable, creative, savage, and worst of all, the humans had learned incredibly quickly. Every defeated human vessel yielded data that other humans incorporated into new strategies. Every captured alien technology was reverse-engineered within cycles. The humans didn't just fight. They adapted. They evolved their warfare in real time. It had taken the Precursors themselves, beings who had transcended physical form and possessed technology that seemed like magic, to finally stop humanity's expansion. Even then, the record suggested it hadn't been easy. Approaching the quantum barrier, announced the ship's pilot, preparing to transmit peaceful intent signal. The barrier shimmered before them, a wall of twisted space-time that had contained humanity for 3,000 years. Tel Noir transmitted, the diplomatic codes that would allow them passage. Nothing happened. Try again, Tel Noir ordered, a thread of worry coiling through his thoughts. The pilot attempted the transmission twice more. The barrier remained impenetrable. "This is wrong," Miraz said, her crystalline form flickering with anxiety. "The barrier protocol should recognize Confederation authority. Unless—" She trailed off, the implications too terrible to voice. General Crix completed the thought. "Unless the humans have already compromised it." As if in response, alarms shrieked across the Harmonious Unity's bridge. The view screen lit up with contacts. Dozens of them. Hundreds. Small craft emerging from what appeared to be the moon, from Mars, from orbiting stations that hadn't been there during the last survey. "Impossible," Crix breathed. "We suppressed their space program. They should have only primitive chemical rockets and a few tin can satellites." Tel Noir studied the contacts with growing dread. The designs were crude, clearly rushed into production, but the energy signatures didn't lie. These craft had quantum drives. Primitive ones, barely controllable but functional. Humanity hadn't just discovered FTL travel. They had weaponized it and deployed a fleet. "How long?" he whispered. "How long since the artifact activation?" 47 cycles, Ambassador," the tactical officer reported. "By human measurement, slightly more than 2 of their months." 2 months, Crix said in disbelief. "They built a fleet in 2 months?" A new signal crackled across their communications array. Audio only, speaking in standard galactic. Something Earth shouldn't even know existed. "Attention, unidentified vessels. This is Commander Elizabeth Park of the Terran Defense Initiative. You are in violation of human sovereign space. State your intentions immediately, or you will be fired upon." Tel Noir felt his carapace go cold. Sovereign space. They were already claiming territory. "This is Ambassador Tel Noir of the Galactic Confederation. We come in peace, seeking dialogue with your species regarding your place in the wider galactic community." Laughter. Human laughter, somehow more chilling than any threat. "Ambassador, forgive my cynicism, but we've spent the last 2 months learning about your galactic community. We've decrypted your surveillance drones. We've interrogated your automated systems. We've studied the Precursor caches scattered across our planet. We know what you did to us 3,000 years ago. We know about the quarantine. We know you've been keeping us in a cage." The woman's voice hardened. "So no, Ambassador. We're not particularly interested in your dialogue about our place in your community." "Commander Park," Tel Noir said carefully, "I understand your anger, but please understand that the decisions made 3,000 years ago were not made lightly. Your species was a threat to all life in the galaxy. The Precursors themselves deemed it necessary to intervene. Because we were winning." Commander Park's words were flat, certain. "Because humanity refused to bow. Because we're damn good at surviving. Well, Ambassador, we're still here. We're still human. And we're done being anyone's science experiment." General Cree activated his weapons systems. "Ambassador, I recommend we withdraw and call in the battle fleet. This is exactly what we feared." But Tel Noir held up a manipulator appendage. "Wait. Commander Park, if you've studied the records, then you know what will happen if the Confederation perceives you as a threat. 400 civilizations will unite against you. You cannot win that war. Can't we?" A new voice joined the transmission. Male, younger, with an accent Tel Noir's translator marked as North American English. "Ambassador, this is Captain Jake Morrison. I'm the pilot who broke your precious lightspeed barrier. And I've got to tell you, your technology isn't as impressive as you think it is. We've already reverse-engineered the quantum drive and improved it. Our version is 40% more efficient than yours." "You're lying," Crix snarled. "Quantum drive technology took my species 8,000 cycles to develop." "Yeah, well, we're fast learners. It's kind of our thing." Captain Morrison paused. "Ambassador, here's what's going to happen. You're going to turn your ship around and go back to your Confederation. You're going to tell them that humanity is no longer quarantined. We're coming out. We'll trade with anyone who wants to trade. We'll talk with anyone who wants to talk, but we will not submit to anyone's authority, except our own. And if the Confederation refuses? Tel Noir asked, though he already knew the answer. Commander Park's voice returned, cold and clear. Then we go to war, Ambassador, and we'll show the galaxy why the Precursors were so afraid of us in the first place. Humanity doesn't start fights, but we always finish them. The transmission cut off. The human fleet maintained its position, weapons armed but not firing. A clear message. We're ready, but the choice is yours. Tel Noir looked at his companions. General Crix's battle lust was barely contained. Counselor Miraz had gone completely still, a sign of overwhelming fear in her species. The crew watched him, waiting for orders. Pilot, Tel Noir said quietly. Set course back to Confederation space, full speed. Ambassador, Crix protested. This is cowardice. We should call in the fleet now, destroy them before they can spread beyond their system. And start a war that will cost billions of lives? Tel Noir's stalks whipped toward the general. No, we will report what we've seen. The council will decide. But I will not be the one who fires the first shot in a conflict that could consume the galaxy. As the harmonious unity turned away, Tel Noir took one last look at the human fleet. So many ships built so quickly, crewed by a species that had been living in ignorance of the wider universe just months ago. The galaxy had no idea what was coming. The humans weren't just breaking out of their cage, they were preparing to claim the stars as their birthright, and Tel Noir suspected that this time, not even the Precursors could stop them. Because the Precursors were gone. And humanity was very, very angry. The Grand Assembly Hall had never been so full. Every member species of the Galactic Confederation had sent representatives, and many had come in person rather than via hologram. The stakes were too high for remote attendance. Counselor Verath pulsed at the center of the chamber, her crystalline matrix flickering with agitation. We have heard Ambassador Tel Noir's report. The situation is clear. Humanity has broken quarantine, developed weapons, and explicitly threatened war if we attempt to reimpose containment. The question before this council is simple. How do we respond? General Crix stood, his battle armor gleaming. The answer is equally simple, Counselor. We mobilize the full might of the Confederation fleet and eliminate the threat before it spreads. The humans have shown their true nature. They are the same species they were 3,000 years ago. Aggressive, expansionist, and dangerous. We have the advantage now. 400 civilized worlds against one. We may never have this opportunity again. Murmurs of agreement rippled through sections of the chamber. The warrior species, those who had built their civilizations on strength and conquest, nodded their various appendages in approval. But others remained silent, uncertain. Ambassador. Velcora of the Serene Communion, a telepathic species known for their philosophy of peace, projected her thoughts into the chamber. And what of the cost, General? The Precursor records indicate that the last war with humanity resulted in the deaths of billions. And that was when they were a young species, barely understanding the technology they wielded. They are older now, more experienced. How many will die if we attack them? Fewer than if we wait, Crix responded. Ambassador Tel Noir's report indicates they have built hundreds of ships in mere weeks. Imagine what they could build in years, decades, centuries. No, the time to act is now, while they are still confined to one system. Tel Noir stood, his sensory stalks drooping with exhaustion. The journey back from Earth had taken a toll, but more than that, the weight of what he had witnessed pressed down on him. If I may speak, Counsel? Verath gestured assent. You have seen them firsthand, Ambassador. Your perspective is crucial. Then I must counsel against military action. Tel Noir's words sent a shock through the chamber. Not because I doubt our military superiority, but because I fear what we might unleash. The humans I spoke with were not mindless aggressors. They were defensive, yes, angry, certainly. But they offered trade. They offered dialogue. They explicitly stated they would not start a war. But they would finish one, Crix interjected. They made that threat clear. Yes, Tel Noir agreed. And I believe them. Council members, I have studied the classified records from the first human emergence. Do you know what frightened the Precursors the most? It wasn't humanity's violence or their expansion. It was their creativity, their ability to innovate under pressure. Every battle they lost taught them lessons that made them stronger. Every setback became fuel for innovation. The hologram displayed what looked like a massive ring, miles in diameter. The Precursors didn't just travel faster than light. They created stable wormholes, permanent gates that could connect any 2 points in the galaxy instantaneously. The Confederation knows these gates exist. There are a few ancient ones still functioning, but they've lost the ability to build new ones. We found the plans. And more importantly, we found 3 partially constructed gates in our solar system, hidden in the asteroid belt. They were left behind when humanity was reset, waiting for us to reactivate them. He brought up a holographic display. Look at this. Human ship designs from the first emergence, spanning only 50 of their years. The images cycled through. Primitive fusion drives, then quantum tunneling engines, then something the records called probability warps. They didn't just adopt our technology. They improved it, made it more efficient, more deadly. And when we adapted our tactics, they adapted faster. Then you prove my point, Crix argued. They are too dangerous to be allowed freedom. No, General. I proved that they are too dangerous to attack. Tel Noir's stalk spread wide, a gesture of emphasis. Because if we strike first, we validate their worst fears about us. We prove that the galaxy is hostile, that they were right to arm themselves, right to prepare for war. And then, Council members, they will become the very monsters we fear, not because it is their nature, but because we will have given them no other choice. Silence fell over the chamber. Councillor Verath pulsed thoughtfully. What do you propose, Ambassador? We cannot simply ignore them. We engage them. Not with weapons, but with trade. With technology exchange. With cultural programs. Tel Noir pulled up new data. The humans have resources we need. Their world is rich in rare elements. Their biology has produced chemical compounds unknown elsewhere in the galaxy. And their creativity, Council. Imagine what humanity could contribute to the Confederation if they were members rather than enemies. You would have us admit them to the Confederation? Velcora projected, her thoughts colored with curiosity. After 3,000 years of quarantine? I would have us give them a choice, Tel Noir said. Membership with full rights and protections, if they agree to Confederation law. The alternative being not war, but isolation. We leave them alone. No trade, no contact, but no hostility. Let them develop naturally. Perhaps in a few more centuries they will be ready. General Crix laughed, a harsh barking sound. And perhaps in a few more centuries, they will have conquered half the galaxy again. Ambassador, your sentiment is admirable but foolish. The humans are not going to isolate themselves peacefully. They have already stated their intention to expand. They will come into contact with other species, whether we sanction it or not. Better that we control the circumstances. The General has a point, admitted Councillor Martel of the Trading Guild. Isolation is not feasible. Human ships can now travel faster than light. They will encounter other civilizations. Border disputes will arise. Without a framework for interaction, without laws and treaties, chaos will result. The chamber erupted into debate. Species argued over historical precedents, military statistics, economic projections. Hours passed. The Confederation, which had maintained peace for millennia through careful diplomacy and mutual interest, found itself divided. Finally, Councillor Verath called for silence. We will put it to a vote. 3 options. First, full military action to eliminate the human threat. Second, offer of Confederation membership with full rights. Third, quarantine reinforcement with increased monitoring. All in favor of option 1? Approximately 100 delegates voted for military action. The warrior species mostly, and a few others who had encountered humanity during the first emergence and still bore the scars. Option 2, 150 votes. The merchant species, the peaceful races, those who believed in redemption and growth. Option 3, 150 votes. The cautious majority, those who feared both war and integration. Vareth dimmed slightly. A split decision. We require a majority. We will recess for one cycle to allow for negotiation and coalition building. This council stands adjourned. As the delegates filed out, Tel Noir found himself approached by Ambassador Yearleth of the Polonian swarm. Her wing casings opened and closed in agitation. "Ambassador, a word in private?" They moved to an antechamber. Yearleth looked around nervously before speaking. "I voted for option 2, membership. But I need you to understand something. My species has a long memory, passed down through our genetic lineage. We remember the first human emergence. We fought them at the Battle of Kepler 442. Do you know what happened there?" Tel Noir shook his head. "We had superior numbers, superior technology, superior tactics. We should have won decisively. But the humans, they used our own psychology against us. They studied our communications, learned our social hierarchies, and then broadcast a frequency that drove our queens into a mating frenzy in the middle of battle. Our fleet descended into chaos. Half our ships destroyed themselves in the confusion. The humans won without firing a shot. Your point, Ambassador? My point is that the humans don't fight fair. They don't follow the established rules of warfare. They win by changing the rules entirely." Yearleth's mandibles clicked softly. "If we offer them membership, we must be prepared for them to transform the Confederation from within. They will not be content to be one voice among hundreds. They will seek to lead, to influence, to shape policy. Can the Confederation survive that?" Tel Noir considered the question. Can the Confederation survive a war with them? That is the alternative. "Perhaps," Yearleth said softly. "The real question is, does the Confederation deserve to survive if it cannot coexist with a species like humanity? We have built a civilization of peace and prosperity. But perhaps we have also built a civilization of stagnation. When was the last time any member species truly innovated? When was the last time we faced a real challenge? The humans terrify us, Ambassador. But maybe we need to be terrified. Maybe we need to be shaken from our complacency." She left, leaving Tel Noir alone with his thoughts. Outside, through the transparent walls of the chamber, he could see the stars. 400 civilizations, spanning millions of light years, all connected in a web of trade and diplomacy that had endured for millennia. And in one small corner, a single yellow star. One species, one planet, one impossible people who refused to accept the galaxy's judgment of them. Tel Noir made a decision. Tomorrow, when the council reconvened, he would speak not of caution or compromise, but of courage. Because Yearleth was right. The galaxy needed to be shaken, and humanity, whether friend or foe, would be the catalyst for that awakening. Director Zhao stood before the assembled representatives of Earth's most powerful nations in a bunker beneath Geneva. The room was tense, filled with presidents, prime ministers, and military chiefs who had learned, in the span of 2 months, that everything they thought they knew about humanity's place in the universe was a lie. "They're debating whether to wipe us out," she said bluntly, pulling up the intercepted communications from the Confederation Council. "Our xenolinguistics team has been working around the clock to decrypt their transmissions. The vote was split. We have maybe 72 hours before they reconvene and make a final decision." President Alexandra Morrison of the United States, Jakin, Morrison's aunt, though few knew of their relationship, leaned forward. "What are our options, Director?" "Militarily, we lose. Our fleet is impressive for something we built in 2 months, but we're facing 400 civilized worlds. Even if we win individual battles, we can't win the war. We simply don't have the numbers." Director Zhao pulled up tactical projections. "However, we don't have to win militarily. We just have to make them think we can." Premier Chen of China frowned. "Elaborate." "The Galactic Confederation has been at peace for 3,000 years. Their military forces are designed for peacekeeping and defense against pirates, not total war. They're powerful but soft. They've never faced an enemy that adapts, that innovates, that refuses to surrender. Zhao's eyes gleamed. They're afraid of us because of what we did 3,000 years ago. We need to remind them why that fear is justified. You're proposing we threaten them? Prime Minister Adeyemi of the Pan-African Union looked skeptical. Provoke them into attacking us? No. I'm proposing we demonstrate capabilities that make them reconsider what an attack would cost. Zhao nodded to Dr. Sarah Chen, who had been brought in as a consultant on Precursor technology. Dr. Chen? Sarah stood, still somewhat overwhelmed to be briefing world leaders. The Precursor caches we've discovered across Earth contain more than just warnings. They contain gifts, technology that humanity lost when we were reset. Over the past 8 weeks, we've excavated 17 sites. What we've found, she brought up holographic schematics, defensive systems, shield technology, and something else, something that could change everything. Can we? President Morrison asked. Reactivate them? We already have. Sarah pulled up live footage that made everyone in the room gasp. This is the Mars Gate, activated 6 hours ago. It currently connects to nowhere, an empty point in deep space. But with Precursor navigation codes, which we're decrypting, we could connect it to anywhere in the galaxy. Premier Liu sat back, understanding dawning. We could bypass the Confederation fleet entirely, strike at their homeworlds before they even realize we're coming. We could, Director Zhao agreed. But more importantly, they'll know we could. That's the deterrent. The Confederation has a saying, peace through mutual dependence. Every species needs something from every other species. They can't go to war with us without risking their entire economic system. But what they truly fear is an enemy that can strike without warning, from anywhere. You're talking about mutually assured destruction, observed Defense Secretary Kowalski of the European Federation. Nuclear deterrence on a galactic scale. Exactly. We show them we have the capability to hurt them badly enough that victory would be Pyrrhic at best. Then we offer them something better. Cooperation. Zhao pulled up Earth's resource surveys. Rare Earth elements they need for their technology. Medical compounds from our biosphere that don't exist elsewhere. And most valuable of all, human ingenuity. 2 months ago, we didn't know FTL travel was possible. Today, we have a fleet. That rate of innovation is something they can't replicate. If they're smart, they'll want us as allies, not enemies. President Morrison drummed her fingers on the table. There's a risk. If we show them we have these gates, these capabilities, we might push them toward immediate military action out of fear. That's why we need to be strategic about the reveal. Director Zhao pulled up a complex timeline. We have operatives ready to contact individual Confederation species directly, not the Council, but specific governments, the merchant species, the peaceful races, those who voted for our inclusion. We offer them trade deals, technology exchanges. We create economic pressure for peace before the military pressure for war can build. Divide and conquer, Premier Liu said approvingly. The same strategy that worked for us 3,000 years ago, according to the records. With a modification, Dr. Chen interjected. 3,000 years ago, humanity was purely aggressive. We took what we wanted. This time we offer mutual benefit. We show them we've learned, that we can be partners, not conquerors. But we keep the capability to be conquerors if they force our hand. The room fell silent as the leaders absorbed the plan. Finally, President Morrison spoke. We're talking about a complete paradigm shift in human civilization. First contact, galactic politics, technology that will transform our society overnight. The cultural shock alone will be managed, Director Zhao said firmly. We've been preparing for this. The Prometheus initiative wasn't just about building ships. We've been training diplomats, xenologists, cultural liaisons. We have protocols ready for public disclosure. Humanity has survived ice ages, world wars, and nuclear standoffs. We'll survive this too. But will we thrive? Asked Prime Minister Adeyemi. That's the real question. Can humanity join the galactic community without losing what makes us human? Before anyone could answer, alarms blared. A junior officer burst into the room, protocols forgotten in his urgency. Ma'am, we have multiple contacts approaching Earth. Confederation vessels, but not military. The transponder codes identify them as merchant ships, civilian transports. Director. Zhao and the world leaders rushed to the command center. The displays showed dozens of ships approaching Earth from different vectors, each broadcasting peaceful intent signals. But these weren't Confederation government vessels. A communication request flashed across the screen. Director Zhao accepted it, and a bizarre alien face appeared, something like an octopus wearing jewelry. "Greetings, humans," the creature said in accented but understandable English. "I am Merchant Captain Zixler of the independent trading vessel Profit Margin. I represent the Free Traders Guild, an association of merchants from 73 different species. We've been monitoring your situation with great interest, and we have a business proposition for you. This is Director Zhao of Earth's Prometheus Initiative." "What kind of proposition?" Zixlar's tentacles rippled in what might have been a smile. "The Confederation Council is debating whether to grant you membership or destroy you. But they're fools if they think they can control trade through government channels. We merchants know better. So, before they make their decision, we're making ours. We want to trade with Earth, your resources, your technology, your creativity." The word came out with something like hunger. "We're willing to offer you things the Confederation won't. Technology they've been hoarding, information about species that voted against you, and most importantly, political support. The Free Traders Guild has considerable influence. If we advocate for Earth's independence, many will listen." "And what do you want in return?" Director Zhao asked, knowing there was always a price. 10%. Zixlar's answer was immediate. 10% of all Earth's trade with the greater galaxy for the next 100 cycles goes through the Guild. We become your exclusive brokers to the galactic market. In exchange, we share our networks, our knowledge, and our political capital. You get instant access to markets across 400 worlds. We get a cut of the most promising emerging market in galactic history. President Morrison leaned toward Director Zhao. "Can we trust them?" "Merchants? They're probably the most trustworthy species in the galaxy," Zhao whispered back. "Their reputation is their currency. If they make a deal, they honor it." She turned back to Zixlar. "We'll need guarantees, contracts, neutral arbitration. Of course, we're merchants, not barbarians. I have contracts prepared according to Galactic Commercial Code, adjusted for your legal frameworks. Shall we begin negotiations?" Over the next 6 hours, while the world leaders watched in fascination, Director Zhao and her team hammered out humanity's first interstellar trade agreement. Medical compounds for food synthesis technology, rare earth elements for civilian ship designs, human entertainment media, which apparently had a massive underground market in the galaxy, for educational databases covering 10,000 years of galactic history. By the time the negotiations concluded, Earth had secured trade relationships with 73 species, bypassing the Confederation Council entirely. The economic ties being formed would make any military action against Earth economically devastating for a significant portion of the galaxy. "The Confederation Council is going to be furious," President Morrison observed as they watched the merchant ships begin landing at designated Earth sites. "Good," Director Zhao said with satisfaction. "Let them be angry. Let them realize that humanity won't wait for permission to join the galactic community. We're not asking for a seat at the table anymore. We're building our own table, and if they're smart, they'll want to join us." Captain Jake Morrison, who had been observing the negotiations, grinned. "You know what the best part is? In trying to quarantine us, they gave us 3,000 years to develop independently. We have art, music, literature, and philosophical traditions they've never encountered. We have cuisines from 100 cultures. We have stories that will blow their minds. They wanted to keep us in a cage, but all they did was create the most unique species in the galaxy." "And now," Dr. Sarah Chen added, studying the Precursor, data flowing in from the merchant ship's databases, "we're going to show them what happens when you give humanity a challenge. We don't just meet it, we exceed it. We transform it into something new." Above Earth, the merchant ships continued to arrive, and across the galaxy, on hundreds of worlds, aliens watched in fascination and fear as humanity announced its presence, not with weapons or threats, but with trade, culture, and an enthusiasm that was utterly unstoppable. The Confederation had wanted to keep humanity contained. Instead, they had created a powder keg, and the Free Traders Guild had just provided the spark. Ambassador Tel Noir received the news while preparing his speech for the Council's reconvening session. The message was marked urgent, routed through 6 different communication relays to avoid tracking. Ambassador, this is Merchant Captain Zixlar of the Free Traders Guild. I thought you should know. We're currently establishing trade relationships with Earth. 73 independent merchant species are landing on the human homeworld as I speak. Whatever the Confederation Council decides, it's already too late to isolate them. The economic cat is out of the bag, so to speak. Thought you'd want to know before you address the Council. Good luck. Tel Noir felt his carapace go cold. The merchants had moved before the Council could act. It was brilliant and terrifying in equal measure. The Free Traders Guild had no political authority, but they had something better: economic necessity. If 73 species were already trading with Earth, military action would devastate their economies. They're learning, Councillor Verath said, appearing beside Tel Noir. The crystalline being had also received the news. 3,000 years ago, humanity conquered through force. Now they're conquering through economics. I'm not sure which is more dangerous. The Council meets in 1 hour, Tel Noir said. This changes everything. The option to quarantine is off the table. Military action would now hurt our own merchants. We're left with only 2 real choices: accept them or fight them. And fighting them becomes harder every day they remain free. Verath pulsed with concern. Ambassador, what do you intend to say to the Council? Tel Noir looked at his carefully prepared speech advocating for cautious engagement. He deleted it. The truth, Councillor. That we were wrong. That the quarantine failed not because of any flaw in the barriers, but because you cannot cage a species like humanity. They will always find a way out. The only question is whether they emerge as friends or enemies. And that ultimately is our choice, not theirs. The Grand Assembly Hall was even more crowded than before. News of the Free Traders Guild's actions had spread rapidly. Many of the merchant species present looked pleased. The military species looked ready for war. And the rest looked uncertain, which Tel Noir decided to interpret as an opportunity. General Kree stood as soon as the session began. This is exactly what I warned you about. The humans have been free for mere cycles, and already they're corrupting the established order. They've bypassed Confederation authority, violated trade protocols, and established unauthorized relationships with 73 species. This cannot stand. On the contrary, said a new voice, it can and it must. All eyes turned to see who had spoken. Ambassador Yearleth of the Polonian swarm stood, her wing casings fully extended in a display of determination. General Crix, you frame the human actions as corruption. I frame them as innovation. The Confederation has operated under the same trade protocols for 2,000 years. They're inefficient, bureaucratic, and designed to maintain the status quo. The humans offered the Free Traders Guild better terms in 6 hours than the Confederation offers in 6 years. That's not corruption. That's competition. And perhaps we need it. Murmurs spread through the chamber. Yearleth continued, I call for a vote of immediate Confederation membership for humanity, with full rights and responsibilities. The alternative is a war that will shatter the peace we've maintained for millennia. And for what? To punish a species for being too good at adaptation? To maintain a quarantine that has already failed? They are dangerous. Crix roared. They have activated Precursor gates. They possess weapons technology that could threaten any world in the Confederation. Yes, Tel Noir said, standing to join Yearleth. They do, and they've had those capabilities for over a cycle now. Tell me, General, how many worlds have they attacked? How many Confederation vessels have they destroyed? Crix's mandibles worked silently. None, Tel Noir continued. 0. They have activated defensive systems, yes. They have built a fleet, yes. But they have not fired a single shot except in self-defense drills. They have not invaded anyone. They have not conquered anything. They have traded. They have negotiated. They have, in fact, behaved like responsible galactic citizens without any guidance from us. Because they know we're watching, Crix argued. Because they know 400 worlds stand ready to destroy them if they step out of line. Or, Counselor Verath pulsed, because they genuinely want peace. Ambassador Thelnoir is correct. We have been operating under an assumption based on events 3,000 years old. Yes, humanity was aggressive then, but they were also young. They had developed faster than light travel before developing interspecies diplomacy. They had no framework for peaceful coexistence, because they had never encountered another intelligent species. Can we truly judge them by the actions of their ancient ancestors? The Precursors judged them, Crick said stubbornly. And the Precursors were wiser than any of us. The Precursors are gone, Thelnoir countered. They ascended to a higher plane of existence and left us to govern ourselves. Perhaps their judgment was appropriate for that era. But this is a new era. These are different humans living in a different galaxy. They deserve to be judged by their current actions, not their history. Ambassador Velcora of the Serene Communion projected her thoughts into the chamber. I have been in telepathic contact with several humans. They're scientists, they're artists, they're leaders. What I sensed was complex. Yes, they have capacity for violence, but they also have extraordinary capacity for compassion, creativity, and cooperation. They are a paradox species, capable of the greatest cruelty and the greatest kindness, much like, I would argue, most of us. The Serene Communion supports membership? Verath asked, surprised. Velcora's species rarely took positions on political matters. We do, with conditions. Velcora's telepathic voice carried nuance that verbal speech couldn't match. Humanity must agree to Confederation laws regarding warfare, colonization, and species rights. They must submit to neutral arbitration in disputes. They must open their worlds to cultural exchange and diplomatic missions. But in return, they receive full membership benefits, trade rights, technology sharing, protection under Confederation law, and most importantly, a voice in their own governance. This is madness, Crick said, but his voice carried less certainty than before. He could see the chamber turning against him. Thelnoir pressed the advantage. General, what is our alternative? War? We've run the projections. Even if we win, and that's not certain, the casualties would be in the billions. The economic cost would devastate the Confederation for generations. And for what? To maintain a principle? To punish a species for being too successful at survival? He turned to address the full chamber. 3,000 years ago, the Precursors faced a choice. They could destroy humanity or contain them. They chose containment, hoping that time would change them. It didn't. Time doesn't change a species' fundamental nature, but relationships can, context can. If we treat humanity as enemies, they will become enemies. If we treat them as partners, they may surprise us. And if they betray that trust? Asked Counselor Martel of the Trading Guild. If they use their Confederation membership to gather intelligence, to build their forces, to prepare for conquest, then we will have the legal framework to respond appropriately, Verath said. Confederation law includes provisions for expulsion and sanctions, but more importantly, Counselor Martel, if we grant them membership, we gain insight into their society. We can monitor their military production. We can establish diplomatic relationships that give us early warning of any aggressive intentions. We turn a potential enemy into a known quantity. The chamber fell silent. The moment of decision had arrived. Thelnoir could see delegates calculating, weighing options, considering consequences. Finally, Ambassador Zorik of the Hrask Dominion stood. His species were warriors, proud and fierce, who had fought humanity in the ancient wars. I hate humans, he said bluntly. My genetic memory carries the battle scars my ancestors earned fighting them. They are tricky, unpredictable, and utterly without honor by our standards. The chamber waited. But, Zorik continued, they are also brave, resourceful, and loyal to their own. These are qualities my people respect, and the ambassador speaks truth. We cannot maintain a quarantine that has already failed. We cannot fight a war that serves no purpose. My people have a saying, a warrior who only knows war will die by war. Perhaps it is time the Confederation learned a different way. I vote for membership, with conditions, with monitoring, but membership nonetheless. The floodgates opened. One by one, delegates stood to voice their positions. The merchant species seeing economic opportunity, the peaceful species hoping for cultural enrichment, the warrior species respecting strength wherever they found it. Even some who had initially voted for military action changed their stance. swayed by the arguments and the reality of the situation. When the final vote came, it was overwhelming. 347 to 53 in favor of offering humanity full Confederation membership. General Crick stood, rigid with fury. This council has made a terrible mistake. You will regret this decision. When the humans have consolidated their power, when they have learned our weaknesses, when they make their move, remember that I warned you. He stormed out, followed by his military attachés. The remaining delegates watched him go in silence. Councillor Verath pulsed with mixed emotions. Ambassador Thel-Noir, you will lead the delegation to Earth. Offer them membership. But make the conditions clear. They must abide by our laws. They must submit to our courts. They must agree to limitations on military expansion. And if they refuse, Thel-Noir asked, then we will know we were wrong about them, and may the memory of the Precursors help us all. Thel-Noir bowed, acceptance and trepidation warring within him. He had advocated for this moment, worked toward it, believed it was the right course, but a small part of him wondered if General Crick's might be right. If they were opening the door to their own destruction, only time would tell. And with humanity, time seemed to move at an accelerated pace. The meeting took place aboard a neutral station at the edge of Earth's solar system. The Confederation had insisted on neutral ground. Humanity had agreed, but with conditions. The station would be equipped with escape pods for all parties, weapons would be prohibited, and Earth's fleet would maintain a protective perimeter. Ambassador Thel-Noir arrived with a delegation of 12, representing different Confederation factions. Director Zhao arrived with an equal number of humans, including President Morrison, Dr. Sarah Chen, Captain Jake Morrison, and Commander Elizabeth Park. Also present, to everyone's surprise, was Merchant Captain Zixlar of the Free Traders Guild. I have a vested interest in these negotiations succeeding, Zixlar explained, his tentacles arranging themselves in a posture of innocent goodwill. Call me an observer. The two groups faced each other across a table that adjusted itself to accommodate wildly different biologies. Thel-Noir noticed the humans studying his delegation with unconcealed curiosity. Not fear, not disgust, just intense interest. It was, he had to admit, refreshing compared to the usual wariness species showed at first contact. Shall we begin? Thel-Noir said. The Galactic Confederation, by a vote of 347 to 53, has decided to offer humanity full membership with rights and responsibilities equal to all member species. That's generous, Director Zhao said. What's the catch? Thel-Noir appreciated the directness. The conditions are as follows. First, humanity must agree to Confederation laws regarding warfare. No unprovoked aggression, no conquest of inhabited worlds. Military actions must be approved by the Confederation Military Council. No, President Morrison said immediately. The Confederation delegates stirred in surprise. Thel-Noir's sensory stalks recoiled. I beg your pardon? We will not surrender. Our right to self-defense to a council that spent the last 3,000 years keeping us in a cage, President Morrison said firmly. We'll agree to laws against unprovoked aggression. We'll agree not to conquer inhabited worlds, but our military remains under our sovereign control. We won't ask permission to defend ourselves. That's unacceptable, sputtered Councillor Miraz. Every Confederation species submits their military to Council authority. It's how we maintain peace. Every Confederation species has been part of your system for centuries or millennia, Commander Park interjected. They trust the Council because they helped build it. We don't have that trust yet. You want us to put our survival in the hands of a government that voted 53-0 to destroy us? Would you, in our position? The Confederation delegates exchanged uncomfortable glances. Thel-Noir spoke carefully. What would you find acceptable? Director Zhao pulled up a document her team had prepared. We propose a probationary period, 10 years during which humanity's military actions are reviewed by a joint committee, half Confederation representatives, half human. If we violate Confederation law during that period, our membership can be suspended. After 10 years, if we've proven ourselves trustworthy, we gain the same military autonomy as any sovereign member state. 5 years, Thel-Noir countered, and the Joint Committee must include representatives from species that voted against your membership, to ensure objectivity. 8 years, Director Zhao said, and we get to veto any representative we can prove has a conflict of interest. 7 years, Tel Noir said, and you accept 2 representatives who voted against you, chosen by lottery. Director Zhao looked at her team. President Morrison nodded. Agreed. Tel Noir felt a small surge of satisfaction. The humans could negotiate. That was a good sign. Second condition, humanity must open Earth to Confederation diplomatic missions, cultural exchanges, and trade relationships. We agree, President Morrison said, with reciprocal rights. Human diplomats on Confederation worlds, human cultural exchanges, human traders in your markets. Of course, that's standard. Tel Noir moved to the next item. Third condition, humanity must agree to regulations regarding colonization of uninhabited worlds. Claims must be registered with the Confederation. Disputed territories must be resolved through neutral arbitration. Agreed, Director Zhao said, as long as the arbitration is genuinely neutral and we have representation in the process. Standard practice. Fourth condition, Tel Noir hesitated. This was the contentious one. Humanity must agree to technology sharing protocols. All discovered precursor technology must be reported to the Confederation Scientific Council and shared according to established guidelines. The human delegation went very still. Dr. Sarah Chen spoke for the first time. You want our precursor caches. We want all species to benefit from precursor discoveries, Counselor Miraz said. Technology sharing has been Confederation policy for how much precursor technology have you shared with newly contacted species? Doctor, Chen interrupted. In your entire history? Silence. That's what I thought, Dr. Chen continued. You want us to hand over the technology that could make us competitive with established powers, technology that's been sitting on our world for 3,000 years, waiting for us, technology that is arguably our inheritance, and you want us to just give it away? It's for the common good, Counselor Miraz insisted. No, Dr. Chen said flatly. It's for your protection. You're afraid of what we might build if we keep it. Well, too bad. We're keeping the precursor technology we found. Then there can be no membership, Miraz declared. Wait, Tel Noir interjected. He had expected this conflict. Perhaps there is a compromise. Humanity keeps precursor technology discovered on Earth or in their solar system, but any precursor sites discovered elsewhere in the galaxy must be reported and shared according to Confederation protocols. This gives humanity the advantage of what they've already found, while ensuring future discoveries benefit all species. Director Zhao looked at Dr. Chen, who nodded slowly. We can agree to that. With one addition, we get representation on the Scientific Council. We participate in decisions about how shared technology is distributed. One representative, Tel Noir said. One voice among 27. 3 representatives, Director Zhao countered. Given that we'll likely be contributing significant discoveries, we deserve proportional representation. 2 representatives, Tel Noir said. And they must have legitimate scientific credentials, not just political appointees. Deal. They moved through the remaining conditions, trade regulations, legal jurisdictions, cultural protections, with surprising efficiency. The humans proved adept at negotiation, knowing when to compromise and when to hold firm. They weren't unreasonable, Tel Noir noted. They were just unwilling to accept second-class status. Finally, they reached the last item. Tel Noir brought up a holographic document that made the humans lean forward in interest. This is the Confederation Charter, he explained. Every member species signs it upon joining. It outlines your rights and responsibilities, your representation in the Grand Assembly, your obligations to mutual defense, your commitment to peaceful resolution of disputes. President Morrison read through the document carefully. This clause here, Section 47, Subsection 12. It says member species agree to support Confederation stability and continuity. What does that mean in practice? It means you support the existing governmental structure, Counselor Miraz said. You don't attempt to overthrow or significantly alter the Confederation's foundational systems. In other words, Captain Jake Morrison said dryly, don't rock the boat. Essentially, yes. The humans exchanged glances. Director Zhao spoke carefully. We have a problem with that clause. It's too vague, too restrictive. What if the Confederation needs reform? What if the existing systems become corrupt or inefficient? Are we forbidden from advocating for change? Advocating for change is permitted, Del Noir said. Violent revolution is not. We don't do violent revolution anymore, President Morrison said. We've evolved past that, mostly, but we need the right to propose reforms, to vote on structural changes, to participate fully in governance. If we're going to be members of this confederation, we need to be partners, not subjects. The charter has stood unchanged for 1,000 years, Miraz said stiffly. Then maybe it's time for it to change, Director Zhao replied. We're not asking to rewrite it. We're asking for one amendment. Member species have the right to propose charter modifications which will be considered by the Assembly and require a 2/3 majority vote to implement. That's democratic. That's fair. And it ensures the Confederation can adapt to new circumstances. Del Noir looked at his fellow delegates. This was not what they had expected. The humans weren't just asking to join the Confederation. They were already proposing to change it. But perhaps that was necessary. I support the amendment, Del Noir said, ignoring Miraz's shocked expression. The Confederation was founded on principles of mutual cooperation and shared governance. If those principles are sound, they will withstand scrutiny and potential modification. If they are not, then they should be changed. Ambassador, Miraz protested. Counselor, the choice is simple, Del Noir said. We can accept humanity's proposal and gain them as engaged, invested members who will work within the system, or we can refuse and they will remain outside the system, potentially hostile and definitely disruptive. I know which I prefer. After a tense consultation among the Confederation delegates, they agreed to the amendment. President Morrison signed the charter on behalf of humanity. Del Noir affixed his species' traditional seal of agreement. Welcome to the Galactic Confederation, Del Noir said. Humanity is now officially recognized as a sovereign member species with full rights and protections under Confederation law. Ambassador Del Noir felt his carapace lighten with relief. The humans had struck exactly the right tone, acknowledging their past, promising cooperation, but making clear they would not be subservient. They were joining the Confederation as equals, not supplicants. Thank you, Ambassador, President Morrison said. Then she smiled. Now let's talk about the Grand Assembly. When do we get our seat? And more importantly, when do we get to start proposing legislation? Del Noir's sensory stalks quivered with what might have been amusement or horror. Even he wasn't sure which. The next assembly session is in 2 cycles. You'll be formally introduced then. 2 cycles. That's about 8 weeks, right? Director Zhao was already making notes. Good. That gives us time to prepare our first proposals. We have several ideas about improving trade efficiency, streamlining the diplomatic process, and reforming the military council structure. You've been members for 5 minutes and you're already planning reforms? Miraz said incredulously. Efficiency is a human virtue, Dr. Chen said cheerfully. Why wait? Merchant Captain Zixlar's tentacles writhed with what Del Noir recognized as amusement. I told you they would be interesting, Ambassador. The galaxy is about to get much more entertaining. As the delegations prepared to depart, Del Noir found himself approached by Commander Park. Ambassador, a word? They moved to a viewport overlooking Earth. The blue-green world hung in space, looking peaceful and fragile. Hard to believe this one planet had terrified the galaxy. I wanted to thank you, Commander Park said. You advocated for us when it would have been easier to stay silent. Why? Del Noir considered the question. Because I believe the galaxy needs what humanity offers. We've been stagnant, Commander, safe, comfortable, but comfort breeds complacency. 3,000 years ago, your species challenged the established order. Perhaps it's time for that to happen again. Only this time, with dialogue instead of warfare. We're not perfect, Ambassador, Commander Park said quietly. We have our own problems, our own conflicts. You might be disappointed. Every species has flaws, Commander. What matters is whether we're willing to work on them, whether we're willing to grow. Tel Noir looked at Earth with his multiple eyes. I think humanity is. And I think perhaps the rest of us can learn from your example. Commander Park extended her hand, a human gesture of goodwill. Tel Noir carefully grasped it with a manipulator appendage, sealing not just an agreement, but the beginning of a genuine friendship. Behind them, unnoticed, General Crix watched from a cloaked observation ship. His mandibles clicked with displeasure as he saw the humans celebrating, saw the Confederation delegates treating them as equals. Fools, he muttered. They've invited the wolves into the fold, but wolves are still wolves no matter how domesticated they appear, and when humanity shows its true nature, I'll be ready. He activated an encrypted communication channel. All units begin Phase 2 surveillance. I want to know everything about humanity's military capabilities, their production capacity, their strategic thinking. When they make their move, and they will, we'll be ready to stop them. But as General Crix watched Earth recede into the distance, he failed to notice the small human satellite that had latched onto his ship's hull, recording everything. Commander Park had not risen to her position by being naive. Humanity had joined the Confederation in good faith, but they had not survived 3,000 years of quarantine by being unprepared. Trust but verify. It was an old human saying, and it was about to become galactic policy. The Grand Assembly Hall had never seen anything quite like the human delegation's entrance, where other species arrived in formal processions, moving with the measured dignity of ancient civilizations. Humanity practically bounced into the chamber. President Morrison led the group, wearing a formal suit that somehow managed to look both dignified and slightly irreverent. Behind her came a diverse array of humans representing Earth's various nations and cultures, a deliberate choice to show the galaxy that humanity was not a monolithic species, but a tapestry of different peoples united by common cause. Is that one wearing decorative fabric around its neck? Whispered a Cretosian delegate, sensory stalks twitching with confusion. It's called a tie, another delegate who had studied human culture explained. A purely ornamental garment, serves no functional purpose. Very human. Dr. Sarah Chen carried a tablet displaying humanity's proposals, while Captain Jake Morrison, promoted to admiral for the occasion, walked with the easy confidence of someone who had broken the light-speed barrier and lived to tell about it. Director Zhao moved quietly beside them, her eyes constantly scanning the chamber, assessing, calculating. Counselor Vareth pulsed a formal greeting. Honored delegates of humanity, welcome to your first Grand Assembly session. You will be recognized as a full member species with voting rights and representation. Your designated speaking platform is here. A section of the floor illuminated, showing humanity's place among the 400 civilizations. President Morrison took her position, and the sheer alienness of the moment struck every human present. They were standing in a chamber that represented hundreds of worlds, thousands of years of civilization, countless forms of life, and they belonged here, had earned their place here. We have several items on today's agenda, Vareth continued, but by tradition, new member species are granted the opportunity to address the assembly. President Morrison, if you wish to speak. President Morrison stepped forward, and her words were translated simultaneously into 400 different languages, broadcast across a dozen different sensory spectrums. Counselors, delegates, representatives of the Galactic Confederation, I stand before you as the voice of humanity, a species that was lost and has found its way home. She paused, letting the translation catch up. 3,000 years ago, our ancestors reached for the stars and found themselves in conflict with the galaxy. The Precursors judged us too dangerous, too aggressive, too uncontrolled. They reset our civilization and locked us away. Many of you feared what would happen when we broke free. Some of you voted to destroy us rather than risk a repeat of history. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. This was not the conciliatory speech most had expected. I don't blame you for that fear, Morrison continued. Our history is written in blood as much as glory. We have warred with each other for millennia. We have committed atrocities against our own kind. We have ravaged our own planet in pursuit of resources and power. We are not innocent. We are not perfect. We are not saints. Then what are you? Called out a delegate from the warrior caste. Morrison smiled. We are survivors. We are learners. We are a species that has faced extinction a dozen times and refused to die. And most importantly, We are a species that never stops trying to be better than we were. She pulled up a holographic display showing Earth's history. The wars, yes, but also the peace treaties. The environmental damage, but also the recovery efforts. The conflicts between cultures, but also the bridges built between them. We have learned through painful experience that strength without wisdom leads to destruction, that power without responsibility leads to tyranny, that expansion without cooperation leads to isolation. These lessons cost us dearly, but we learned them, and we will not forget them. The chamber had gone silent. Every delegate watched the images cycling through humanity's long, complicated history. We come before you today not as conquerors, but as partners. Not as a threat, but as an opportunity. We bring to the Confederation something that has been missing for too long: fresh perspective. New ideas, different ways of solving old problems. Yes, we will challenge the status quo. Yes, we will propose changes to systems that have stood unchanged for centuries, but not because we want to destroy what you've built, because we want to help it grow. President Morrison's voice strengthened. The galaxy is vast. There are threats out there that no single species can face alone. There are mysteries that no one civilization can unravel. There are opportunities that require cooperation across species, across cultures, across ways of thinking. Humanity is ready to be part of that, to contribute to that, to stand alongside you as equals in the great work of civilization. She paused, then added with a slight smile, "And if we occasionally drive you crazy with our enthusiasm and our refusal to accept, that's how it's always been done as an answer, well, consider it our contribution to keeping the galaxy interesting." The chamber erupted, not in protest but in something like laughter, or the various species equivalents. The tension that had filled the hall since humanity's arrival dissipated like morning fog. "Thank you, President Morrison," Vareth pulsed. "We look forward to humanity's contributions. And now let us proceed with the agenda. First item, trade route optimization in the Sagittarius arm. The current routes are inefficient and—" "Point of order," Director Zhao called out, standing at humanity's platform. Vareth's glow flickered with surprise. "Yes, Director Zhao. Before we discuss optimizing the current routes, has the Assembly considered the possibility of establishing new routes using the Precursor gates? We've analyzed the gate network, and there are several inactive gates that, if reactivated, could reduce travel times by up to 70%. The chamber buzzed with conversation. Councillor Martel of the Trading Guild leaned forward. "The Precursor gates are ancient artifacts. We don't have the technology to reactivate them. Those that remain functional are carefully preserved, but creating new connections is beyond our capabilities." "It was beyond your capabilities," Dr. Sarah Chen said, standing beside Zhao. "We've spent the last 2 months studying the gate systems in our solar system. We believe we've decoded the activation protocols. With your permission, we'd like to propose a joint project to test gate reactivation, starting with a connection between Earth and a willing partner world. This is unprecedented," Vareth said, her crystalline form pulsing rapidly with excitement and concern. "The gates have been inactive for millennia. To reactivate them would revolutionize transportation across the galaxy. Which is exactly why we should do it," Admiral Morrison chimed in. Director Zhao showed them the projections. The holographic display shifted, showing models of gate activation, energy requirements, and potential network configurations. The data was thorough, technically sound, and absolutely revolutionary. The economic benefits alone would be staggering, Merchant Captain Zixlar said from his observer position, tentacles quivering with barely contained greed. Travel time cut by 70% means trade efficiency increased by similar margins. The profit potential is— He caught himself. "I mean, the benefits to civilization would be substantial." "This requires serious study," Councillor Miraz said cautiously. "We cannot simply activate ancient technology without understanding the risks." "Absolutely agreed," Dr. Chen said. "Which is why we're proposing a joint project. Confederation scientists, human scientists working together. Full transparency, peer review at every stage. If it's safe, we proceed. If it's not, we don't. But we should at least investigate the possibility." Vareth looked around the chamber, gauging the mood. "All in favor of establishing a joint scientific committee to study Precursor gate reactivation?" The vote was overwhelming, 389 to 11 in favor. "The committee will be formed within one cycle," Vareth announced. "We will allocate appropriate resources and personnel," Dr. Chen, We will need detailed documentation of your findings to date. Already prepared, Dr. Chen said cheerfully, transmitting a massive data package that made the assembly's computers momentarily lag under the load. That's our preliminary research. 16,000 pages of analysis, testing data, and theoretical models. Enjoy. Thelnoir noticed several delegates staring at the data package in disbelief. Humans had been Confederation members for less than a cycle, and they had already produced more original research than some species contributed in years. The assembly moved through the remaining agenda items. But something had fundamentally changed. The humans didn't simply observe and vote. They asked questions. They proposed alternatives. They challenged assumptions that had gone unquestioned for centuries. When a proposal came up to maintain the current military spending levels, Admiral Morrison raised a point. Has the Assembly considered that these spending levels were set 200 years ago, when threat assessment was different? We've reviewed the current security situation. Most of the budget goes to maintaining fortress worlds that haven't seen conflict in over a century. Wouldn't it be more efficient to redirect some of those resources to rapid response fleets that can deploy to actual trouble spots? The military delegates bristled, but they couldn't deny the logic. A subcommittee was formed to review military spending efficiency. When a trade dispute arose between two species over mining rights in an asteroid belt, Dr. Chen suggested, "Why are you fighting over limited resources when there are 3 empty solar systems within 10 light years that have similar asteroid compositions? Wouldn't it be more efficient to help both parties establish operations in unclaimed territory?" The disputing parties looked at each other, realized the absurdity of their conflict, and agreed to joint exploration of new territories. When cultural tensions threatened to derail a vote on educational exchange programs, President Morrison stood and said, "My world has over 200 distinct cultures. We've spent thousands of years learning how to celebrate differences while finding common ground. If you'd like, we can share our conflict resolution frameworks. They're not perfect, but they might help." By the end of the session, humanity had participated in 17 different agenda items, proposed 3 new initiatives, resolved 2 disputes, and volunteered to share expertise on everything from cultural integration to efficient resource distribution. As the delegates filed out, Thelnoir overheard conversations in a dozen different languages. They're exhausting. They're brilliant. They're dangerous. They're exactly what we needed. Ambassador Yerleth approached Thelnoir, her wing casings rustling. "I told you they would transform the Confederation from within. I didn't expect it to happen in their first session." "Neither did I," Thelnoir admitted. "But perhaps transformation isn't a bad thing. When was the last time the Assembly accomplished so much in a single session? 300 years ago during the Kelrath crisis." Yerleth paused. "They're going to drive some delegates insane with their energy and their constant questioning of established practices." "Good," Thelnoir said, surprising himself with his own vehemence. "Perhaps we need to be a little insane. Perhaps we've been too sane, too comfortable, too stagnant for too long." Across the chamber, General Crix watched the human delegation with cold calculation. They had performed brilliantly today, made themselves indispensable, positioned themselves as problem solvers and innovators. It was exactly what he would do if he were planning to take over the Confederation from within. He activated his secure comm. "Observation Post 7, report on human military production. General, they've tripled their fleet size in the last cycle. New shipyards are coming online across their solar system. They claim it's for exploration and defense, but the vessels are clearly multi-role capable. Armaments? Officially? Standard defensive systems. Unofficially? We've detected energy signatures consistent with weapons research. They're developing something new. We haven't identified what yet." Crix's mandibles clicked in grim satisfaction. "They're doing exactly what I predicted. Playing the cooperative partner while building their forces. Continue monitoring, and prepare the dossier. When they make their move, I want evidence ready to present to the Council." But what Crix didn't know was that his secure comm wasn't as secure as he thought. Human cyber warfare specialists, veterans of Earth's intelligence agencies, had been quietly mapping Confederation communication networks since the day of first contact. They were listening to everything. Commander Park reviewed the intercepted communication with her team. "Crix is building a case against us, interpreting our every action as hostile preparation." "Is he wrong?" asked one of her analysts. "We are expanding our military, We are developing new weapons. For defense, Park said firmly. But he doesn't see it that way. He sees what he expects to see. Aggressive humans preparing for conquest. We need to be smarter about this. More transparent about our defensive preparations while being less transparent about our actual capabilities. So we show him enough to satisfy his suspicions but not enough to reveal our full strength? Exactly. Let him think he knows what we're capable of. Let him underestimate us. Because if Crix ever does try something, I want it to be a very unpleasant surprise for him. Back at the human delegation's quarters on the Confederation station, the team was celebrating their successful first assembly session. President Morrison raised a glass of Earth whiskey, now a hot commodity among merchant species who found its flavor profile utterly unique. To humanity, she toasted. We're officially part of the galactic community. To humanity, the others echoed. And to keeping the galaxy on its toes. Admiral Morrison grinned. You know, when I broke the lightspeed barrier, I thought that was going to be the most exciting moment of my life. Turns out it was just the beginning. Speaking of beginnings, Dr. Chen said, I've been analyzing some data from the Precursor gates. There's something odd. Some of the gates in our solar system were connected to locations that aren't on any Confederation maps, coordinates that lead to parts of the galaxy that are marked as unexplored or hazardous. Why would the Precursors build gates to dangerous locations? Director Zhao asked. Maybe they weren't dangerous 3,000 years ago, Dr. Chen said slowly. Or maybe there's something out there the Confederation doesn't want found. President Morrison set down her glass. Are you suggesting the Confederation has been hiding something? I'm suggesting that an organization that kept humanity in quarantine for 3,000 years might have other secrets, and I think we should find out what they are. The celebration grew more subdued as the implications sank in. Humanity had joined the Confederation, yes. They had been welcomed mostly. But there were still unknowns, still mysteries, still potential threats lurking in the shadows of galactic civilization. We proceed carefully, President Morrison decided. We've made tremendous progress today. We've established ourselves as valuable members of the Confederation. But we don't forget that some members voted to destroy us. We don't forget that General Crix is watching our every move. And we definitely don't forget that we're still the new kids in a very old, very complex galaxy. Agreed, Director Zhao said. We play the long game. Build alliances. Gather intelligence. Establish ourselves as indispensable. And if there are secrets to uncover, we uncover them quietly. Admiral Morrison raised his glass again. To the long game, then. And to humanity, still surviving, still adapting, still refusing to be anyone's victim. They drank to that, unaware that in the depths of unexplored space, at coordinates deleted from Confederation maps centuries ago, something ancient was beginning to stir. Something that had been waiting for a very long time. Waiting for a species bold enough, curious enough, foolish enough to find it. The Precursors had left humanity many gifts. But they had also left warnings. And some warnings humanity was about to discover existed for very good reasons. 3 months after humanity's admission to the Galactic Confederation, Dr. Sarah Chen stood in the observation deck of the research vessel Curiosity, staring at something that shouldn't exist. The Precursor gate hung in space like a vast ring of impossible geometry, its surface covered in the same flowing symbols she'd first seen in that Turkish archaeological site. But this gate was different from the others humanity had reactivated. This one was hidden in a debris field at coordinates that had been deliberately erased from Confederation navigation databases. We shouldn't be here, said Lieutenant Commander David Torres, the Curiosity's captain, a former Navy officer who'd transitioned to the new Earth Space Exploration Corps. Torres had the cautious instincts of someone who'd survived too many deployments to trust easy missions. Probably not, Dr. Chen agreed. But when has shouldn't ever stopped humanity? Fair point. Torres checked the sensor readings again. The gate's active. Low power, but definitely functional. No recent traffic according to the residual energy signatures, but there's been activity within the last 100 years. Someone knows about this place. Dr. Chen's team had been following a hunch based on anomalies in the Precursor data, gaps in the gate network. Coordinates that led to nothing in official records but showed signs of having once been important nodes. This gate had been their third find and by far the most intriguing. The Confederation has been very careful about exploration in this sector, Dr. Chen mused. It's marked as high radiation hazard on all their charts, but our readings show radiation levels are completely normal. Someone lied about this place. The question is why? Maybe we're about to find out, Torres said, pointing at the sensor display. We've got incoming. Single ship Confederation design, but the transponder is encrypted beyond standard protocols. Military, maybe black ops. The approaching vessel was sleek and dark, built for stealth rather than commerce. As it closed on the Curiosity, a communication request flashed across their screens. This is Commander Celovix of Confederation Intelligence. You are operating in restricted space. State your purpose immediately. Torres and Dr. Chen exchanged glances. Confederation intelligence wasn't something they'd encountered before. The existence of such an organization hadn't been mentioned in any of their briefings. This is Lieutenant Commander Torres of the Earth vessel Curiosity. We're conducting authorized scientific research into Precursor gate networks. We weren't aware this space was restricted. It's not marked as such on official Confederation charts. A pause. Then, you are human. Yes, is that a problem? Another pause, longer this time. Then the video link activated, showing a reptilian face with multifaceted eyes and scaled skin that shifted colors with apparent emotion. That depends on what you've discovered. Dr. Chen, your reputation precedes you. The archaeologist who found the first precursor cache on Earth. Tell me, have you activated this gate? No, Dr. Chen said. We just arrived. We're still conducting preliminary surveys. Good. Celovix's scales darkened to something like worry. Do not activate it. Do not attempt to probe it with active sensors. And under no circumstances should you attempt to determine where it leads. Why not? Dr. Chen asked. Her scientific curiosity immediately piqued. Celovix was silent for a long moment. Because, Dr. Chen, there are some doors that should remain closed. Some places in the galaxy where even the precursors, in all their wisdom, decided not to go. This gate leads to one of them. Torres leaned forward. Commander, with respect, that's not an explanation. We're Confederation members now. We have a right to know what threats exist in our galaxy. Do you? Celovix's colors shifted to something aggressive. Humanity has been part of the Confederation for mere cycles. There are secrets that have been kept for millennia, burdens carried by the oldest species, knowledge that the younger races are not ready to bear. That's very patronizing, Dr. Chen said coolly, and also exactly the kind of attitude that kept us in quarantine for 3,000 years. If there's a threat, we deserve to know about it. Celovix's ship moved closer, weapons systems powering up, not targeting the Curiosity directly, but the threat was clear. I am authorized to use force if necessary to maintain the security of this site. Turn your ship around, Dr. Chen. Forget you found this place. This is not a negotiation. Torres's hand moved toward weapons controls, but Dr. Chen touched his arm, stopping him. Stand down. We're leaving. She turned back to Celovix. But Commander, humanity doesn't forget. Ever. We'll leave now, but we'll be back. And next time, we'll want answers. Answers can be dangerous, Dr. Chen. Sometimes ignorance is a kindness. The communication cut off. Celovix's ship maintained its position, clearly waiting to ensure the Curiosity departed. Torres began plotting a return course, but his jaw was set with frustration. We're really just leaving? He asked. We're tactically retreating, Dr. Chen corrected. There's a difference. Plot a course back to Earth, but make sure to record everything. All sensor data, all communication logs, everything. We're going to figure out what the Confederation is hiding, even if we have to do it from a distance. As the Curiosity moved away from the hidden gate, Dr. Chen studied the sensor records they'd captured. The gate's energy signature was different from the others they'd examined. More complex, and there was something else. Faint signals that almost looked like transmissions, as if the gate itself were receiving data from somewhere. Commander Torres, she said slowly. Can you run a spectral analysis on these energy patterns? Torres pulled up the data on his console. After a moment, his expression shifted from curiosity to concern. Dr. Chen, these readings, they're similar to what we detected during the first contact event, when the Confederation ships first approached Earth. But the frequency is different. Wrong somehow. Wrong how? Like it's not from our reality. The quantum signatures don't match anything in our universe. Torres looked up at her, and for the first time since she'd known him, she saw fear in his eyes. Dr. Chen, I think that gate doesn't just lead to another place in our galaxy. I think it leads somewhere else entirely. Dr. Chen felt a chill run down her spine. She remembered the Precursor warning from the Turkish cache. What was taken will be reclaimed. What was forgotten will be remembered. We need to talk to Director Zhao, she said. Immediately. Back on Earth, Director Zhao listened to Dr. Chen's report with growing alarm. President Morrison and Admiral Morrison were also present via secure holographic link, their faces grim. A gate to another reality, President Morrison said flatly. That's what you're suggesting? It's one possibility, Dr. Chen said. The data is consistent with theoretical models of interdimensional travel. The precursors were advanced enough that it's not implausible. And the Confederation has known about it for how long? Admiral Morrison asked. Unknown. But Confederation intelligence clearly considers it a high-priority secret, high enough to threaten violence to protect it. Director Zhao pulled up a star map showing the location of the hidden gate and cross-referenced it with Confederation territory. This sector is nominally under the jurisdiction of the oldest Confederation species, the Valerians, a civilization that predates most others by thousands of years. They're one of the few species that might remember the last human emergence. If anyone knows what this gate represents, it would be them. Can we approach them directly? President Morrison asked. We could, but it would tip our hand. They'd know we found the gate and they might move to hide it better or deactivate it permanently. Director Zhao considered the options. We need more information before we confront anyone officially. I might be able to help with that, said a new voice. Everyone turned to see Merchant Captain Zixlar materialize in the conference room's holographic display. His tentacles arranged in what humans had learned was an apologetic gesture. Captain Zixlar, Director Zhao said dryly. I don't recall inviting you to this classified briefing. You didn't, I invited myself. Your encryption is quite good, by the way. It took me almost 3 minutes to crack it. Zixlar's tentacles rippled with amusement. Before you get angry, know that I have information you need. About the Forbidden Gate Network. The what? Dr. Chen asked. The Forbidden Gate Network, a series of precursor gates that were deliberately hidden and restricted by the oldest Confederation species approximately 2,000 years ago. There are 17 of them scattered across the galaxy, all leading to locations that are, shall we say, problematic. How do you know about them? Admiral Morrison demanded. Because I'm a merchant, Admiral, and merchants deal in information as much as goods. Nothing stays secret forever when there's profit to be made from revealing it. Zixlar's tone grew more serious. I know about the Forbidden Gates because my species, the Mercantile Collective, was contracted to help hide them. We were young then, eager to please, and we accepted the job without asking too many questions. But we kept records. We always keep records. What do the gates lead to? President Morrison asked. That's the mystery. The contract specified that we were to hide the gates and ensure no one found them, but we were never told where they led. Only that they were extremely dangerous and should never be activated. Zixlar paused. Until 3 months ago, I thought it was just another job. But then I learned something interesting. Approximately 3,000 years ago, around the time of humanity's first emergence, there was a massive spike in gate activation across the network. And then suddenly, all of the forbidden gates were shut down simultaneously. You think there's a connection to humanity? Dr. Chen asked. I think the timing is suspicious. The precursors reset your civilization and locked you in quarantine at the same time they shut down these gates. Then they ascended to whatever higher plane of existence they achieved. 2 major events happening simultaneously. That's not coincidence, Dr. Chen. That's causation. Director Zhao leaned forward. What are you proposing, Captain? A business arrangement. I provide you with the locations of all 17 forbidden gates and what little information we have about them. In return, you include me in your investigation. If there's profit to be made or danger to be avoided, I want to be part of it. Why should we trust you? Admiral Morrison asked. Because I have more to lose than to gain by betraying you, Admiral. If the Confederation discovers I've revealed this information, my species will be expelled from multiple trade networks. I'm risking everything by coming to you. Zixlar's tentacles coiled tightly, but I believe humanity is going to uncover this secret whether I help you or not. You're too curious, too persistent. At least this way I can try to guide you toward profit and away from annihilation. President Morrison looked at her advisors. Opinions? He's a merchant, Admiral Morrison said. He's motivated by self-interest. That makes him more reliable than someone motivated by ideology. The information could be invaluable, Dr. Chen added. 17 gates could give us a much bigger picture of what the Confederation is hiding. Director Zhao nodded slowly. Agreed. Captain Zixlar, you have a deal. But understand this. If you betray us, if this is some kind of trap, humanity will ensure that the mercantile collective becomes synonymous with untrustworthiness across the galaxy. We may be new to galactic politics, but we learn very quickly how to make enemies pay. I would expect nothing less, Zixlar said. Now shall we discuss our first target? Because I know which of the 17 gates is most likely to yield answers. And interestingly enough, it's located in a system that humanity has already expressed interest in colonizing. He pulled up a star map, showing a yellow dwarf star with multiple habitable worlds. The Kepler 442 system, rich in resources, perfect for colonization, and officially marked as unsuitable for settlement due to geological instability. Except there's no geological instability. There's a forbidden gate hidden in the asteroid belt, and someone doesn't want anyone to find it. Kepler 442, Dr. Chen breathed. That's where Ambassador Yearlith said her species fought humanity 3,000 years ago. The battle where humans weaponized the Polonian Queen's biology. Indeed, Zixlar confirmed, and according to my records, that's also where the first Forbidden Gate activation occurred during humanity's first emergence. The Precursors responded immediately, but not before something came through the gate. Something that required the combined might of the Confederation fleet to contain. What came through? Admiral Morrison asked, though he suspected he didn't want to know the answer. Zixlar's tentacles went completely still, a sign of genuine fear in his species. The records don't say. They just note that after the incident, the Precursors declared that humanity must be reset and that all forbidden gates must be permanently sealed. Whatever came through that gate was considered such a threat that it necessitated the destruction of an entire civilization's knowledge and technology. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Finally, President Morrison spoke. We're going to Kepler 442. We're going to investigate that gate. And we're going to find out what secret is so terrible that it requires erasing human civilization to protect. Madam President, Director Zhao said carefully, this could start a conflict with the Confederation. If they discover what we're doing, then we'll deal with it, Morrison said firmly. But I will not lead humanity blind into a galaxy full of hidden threats and ancient conspiracies. If there's something out there that scared the Precursors enough to reset our entire species, we need to know what it is, because whatever it is, it's still there, still waiting, and eventually someone is going to open that door again. She stood, decision made. Admiral, assemble a task force. Military escort, scientific team, diplomatic corps. Make it big enough to defend itself, but not so big it looks like an invasion force. Dr. Chen, you'll lead the scientific investigation. Zixlar, you're coming with us. And someone get me Ambassador Thelnoir on a secure line. If we're going to do this, I want at least one Confederation official who might tell us the truth. As the team began preparations, none of them noticed the small surveillance drone that had been shadowing the Curiosity since its departure from the hidden gate. The drone transmitted its data to a heavily encrypted network, where it was reviewed by figures whose names did not appear on any official Confederation roster. The humans found Gate 7, one of the figures said, just as predicted, and they survived contact with Celovix, another added. Impressive. Most species would have backed down permanently. Should we intervene? A third asked. No, said the first, their voice carrying a weight of authority. Let them investigate. Let them find the answers they seek. The Precursors left them clues for a reason. Perhaps it's time the truth came out. The Confederation will not accept this easily. There will be consequences. There have always been consequences. The only question is whether we face them as a unified galaxy or a divided one. Humanity may be the catalyst we've needed for 3,000 years, or they may be the spark that burns it all down. And if it's the latter, a long pause, then at least we'll finally know. One way or another, the Age of Secrets is ending. Humanity has returned to the galaxy, and this time, they're asking the right questions. In the depths of space at 17 different locations scattered across the galaxy, the forbidden gates began to pulse with faint energy. After millennia of silence, they were waking up. And somewhere beyond reality as the Confederation understood it, Something ancient turned its attention toward the galaxy once more. The Precursors had tried to protect the younger races by resetting humanity and sealing the gates. But protection, no matter how well-intentioned, was still a cage. And humanity had never been very good at staying caged. The universe was about to be reminded why.